I regret staying silent. Jin finally admits the truth behind Jungkook's drastic change in behavior. What happened to the golden magne we once knew? Why has Jungkook, once vibrant, expressive, and unshakably confident, appeared distant, withdrawn, and hauntingly different in recent years? Why did Jin, the eldest of BTS, suddenly choose now to speak up after years of silence? And what is it he's been carrying all this time, alone, in silence and fear? When Jin looked directly into the camera and whispered, "I regret staying silent," the entire fandom froze. Those 5 words weren't a passing remark. They were a confession. And what followed was a revelation that shook the foundation of everything ARMY thought they knew. Jin's quiet strength has long been the glue of BTS. But his recent statement, delivered not on stage, but in a quiet, off-script moment during an overseas event, has left fans reeling. "I stayed silent because I thought it was the right thing to do. But watching him change, watching Jungkook become someone else, I can't pretend anymore." No warning, no lead-in, just raw, undeniable emotion. And in that moment, it was clear. Something had happened. Something that changed Jungkook and broke Jin. The question everyone is asking now is, what exactly was Jin staying silent about? And what does it have to do with Jungkook's transformation? For over a year, fans have speculated about the youngest BTS member's noticeable shifts in demeanor. From his cryptic social media posts to his growing detachment in interviews, Jungkook no longer seemed like the same wide-eyed dreamer who once laughed freely and cried openly. His last few public appearances, while polished and professional, carried an eerie emptiness. Smiles that didn't quite reach his eyes. Answers that felt rehearsed. Movements that were precise, but joyless. Something was off. Some blamed the pressures of solo fame. Others wondered whether burnout had finally taken its toll. But no one expected the truth would come from Jin, and that it would point to something far more controlled, more orchestrated, and more devastating than anyone imagined. In his emotional statement, Jin did not name names, but the implications were clear. He wanted to be free, he said quietly. He begged to do things his way. But every time he tried, there was a wall. And I was part of that wall. The silence that followed was deafening. Had Jin just admitted to being complicit in limiting Jungkook's autonomy? Had the agency instructed the older members to manage or restrain Jungkook in subtle ways, in the name of group unity or brand preservation? A former staff member who worked with BTS during their international tours spoke anonymously, saying, "There were conversations behind closed doors about Jungkook's image. He was becoming too unpredictable, too emotionally open, and that scared the executives. They wanted consistency. They wanted control." If true, this suggests a chilling reality. Jungkook wasn't just changing because of internal pressure. He was being reshaped, and Jin saw it happen. The most haunting part of Jin's confession came when he whispered, "He asked me, Hyung, if I disappear, will they even notice?" At this, Jin reportedly paused, wiped his eyes, and said, "That night broke me. I knew I had to speak up, but I didn't." Fans have begun revisiting old footage, and suddenly, the signs are everywhere. The way Jungkook would glance at his Hyungs before answering personal questions. The moments he laughed awkwardly when others spoke for him. The subtle body language of someone constantly checking themselves. Was this all performance? Was Jungkook forced to suppress his own identity for years? Jin's revelation also brings renewed focus to a cryptic V-Live Jungkook did last year, where he said, "There are dreams I had that I let go because I felt like they weren't allowed." At the time, many assumed he meant romantic relationships or non-music ventures. But now, in the light of Jin's words, it suggests something much deeper. Something stolen. "People see us on stage and think everything is perfect," Jin said. "But we've all paid a price." His price was too high. The word control keeps surfacing in fan discussions. Control over appearances, over decisions, over artistic direction. Did Jungkook ever truly have a choice in the path he was taking? Or was every step paved for him? While those closest to him stayed silent to maintain the illusion, Jin's admission raises painful questions not only about Jungkook, but about BTS as a whole. If one member was struggling this much, silently, invisibly, what about the others? How many moments of distress went unnoticed? Or worse, were noticed but ignored? ARMY has responded with a mixture of heartbreak, outrage, and fierce protectiveness. Trending hashtags like "We See You Jungkook" and "Thank You Jin" reflect a fandom coming to terms with the possibility that their idols were not just battling the outside world, but forces within their own system. And yet, Jungkook has remained silent. No follow-up posts. No clarifications. Just silence. Perhaps it is a silence he no longer controls. Perhaps, like Jin once was, he is still waiting for the moment he's finally allowed to speak. Or perhaps he's given up on being heard. This unfolding story has rattled the K-pop industry, where polished perfection often conceals personal pain. Jin's courage to speak, however late, may become a turning point not only for BTS, but for every idol navigating the murky waters of fame, pressure, and manipulation. "I regret staying silent," he said, and now the world is listening. The silence around Jungkook has now become deafening. Not only from him, but from those who once claimed to support him unconditionally. Where is HYB's voice in all this? Where is the statement that fans deserve? One that explains the stark change in their youngest star. Instead, HYB remains unmoved. Their media channels saturated with polished promotional content and carefully curated silence. The longer they stay quiet, the more fans feel something is being deliberately covered up behind the digital curtain. The evidence begins to accumulate. Fans are digging through interviews, live streams, and even background audio clips from behind-the-scenes content. The deeper they go, the more unsettling the patterns become. From abrupt topic changes to awkward interruptions by staff, the signs of interference were always there. They just weren't being noticed. Until now, one particular clip resurfaces from 2022. Jungkook, mid-interview, began to tear up when asked about his future. A staff member interrupted, gently placing a hand on his shoulder and whispering something off mic. The camera cut. The footage was never officially released, but fan recordings captured the moment. At the time, it seemed minor. Now it feels like a clue, a moment where raw emotion tried to break through, only to be censored. And what are the other members? Have they noticed this transformation? Have they, too, been told to keep silent? Questions swirl endlessly. Yet it is Jin, only just returned from military service, who risks it all by daring to speak. Some insiders claim Jin's decision to finally break the silence wasn't spontaneous. One unnamed former staffer hinted to a Korean outlet he came back from the army and saw how different everything had become. He saw Jungkook and knew something was very wrong. Whatever innocence they used to share was gone. These words paint a picture of betrayal, not just of one member, but of the bond they all fought to protect. More and more fans now question how much of BTS's journey in recent years was genuine. Was their solo era truly about artistic freedom? Or was it a way to separate and control each member individually, stripping away the collective strength they once held? Jin's comment has cracked open a window, but the truth remains murky, painful, and dangerously close to collapse. And still, Jungkook says nothing. Some believe he is protecting those around him. Others fear he has been emotionally broken to the point where he no longer feels safe to speak. Could it be that the Jungkook who once sang about dreams and destiny now doubts whether either are still within reach? Jin's confession didn't just unsettle fans. It called out the unspoken rule that idols must remain perfect, polished, and voiceless. His act of truth-telling wasn't just about Jungkook. It was about dismantling the system that demands silence in exchange for success. If Jungkook ever speaks, will it confirm our worst fears, or will it redeem what's left of the image fans once believed in? What has happened cannot be undone. But perhaps, with Jin's courage, it can be understood. And maybe, just maybe, it can be healed. This is no longer about music. This is about humanity, about the cost of silence. And the pain of watching someone you love fade into a version of themselves they no longer recognize. And now, as millions wait for a response that may never come, The only certainty is this: the silence isn't empty, it's screaming.